Many harpists wonder, is it okay to change the fingering suggested in a score? After all, you see many pieces where fingerings are only marked in some places, but not the others, and you may feel confused about that. Or sometimes you see two different versions of fingerings marked, and perhaps this got you thinking, how flexible can one be with fingerings on the harp? My name is Zuzanna, I am a harpist and a harp teacher, and today I'm going to shed some light on the topic of fingering and whether you can change it or not. I will also talk about some situations where you should stick to fingering suggested as much as you can and how to tell that you happen to come across a piece like that. Are you ready? Let's dive in. First, a short disclaimer. When you ask the question, can I change this fingering? You may get lots of different answers depending who you're asking, because fingering is a very personal matter. A good teacher will also assess your situation and give you a different answer depending on what your experience is and how advanced you are on the harp. For beginners, I believe it is important to stick to the fingering that is suggested and not try to change too many things. This is mainly because there are so many things to learn when you start out on the harp, and if you throw into this mix any extra questions or decisions to be made, you may end up feeling confused and overwhelmed. These first pieces that you learn as a harpist are often aiming to help you learn some technical skills. For example, you may have a piece which involves a lot of arpeggios, and in order to teach your fingers what these shapes feel like, you really want to start with the most basic patterns and not overcomplicate things. Sometimes the choice of fingering may seem a bit odd at first, but it will simplify things for you later. For example, if you're a student on my Reading Music for Harp course, you may already know that because in this program we focus on reading the notes, the only fingering that we're using is playing with second finger of each hand, and only the second finger. And even though it may feel strange and perhaps limiting at first, students who have completed the course agree that it has given them more mental space to focus on the main challenge they came to work on, which is reading music. They didn't need to make any other decisions apart from which string is that second finger going to. And once you feel comfortable with this, you have more freedom to add extra layers and change fingerings in the future if you want to. That's something I would like you to keep in mind. You can always change fingerings later. And the more advanced you are, the more at ease you will feel with that, and you will be also more confident in making these decisions yourself. As you gain more experience and get to know various patterns and shapes like scales, arpeggios and other techniques, you will learn about different fingerings and rules that go with them, and also any exceptions that may be out there. And as you progress, same as your repertoire of pieces grows, your repertoire of fingerings available to choose from will widen. To sum up, if you're just starting out on the harp, I would aim to stick to the fingerings that are in the music or follow the guidance of your teacher, simply because it will very likely make a lot of things easier for you. Okay, but I imagine that if you're watching this video and asking yourself this question right now, you may likely be learning the harp on your own and have no teacher to ask. Perhaps some markings that you've seen in your music seem awkward, and it feels that other fingerings would be more natural for your hand. So you're wondering if what you see in the music is just a suggestion, or if there's any reason why you should persist with the fingerings that you see in there. To answer this question, most fingering suggestions that you see written in the music are exactly that, just a suggestion. Of course, there are likely some reasons behind why the composer or arranger put certain fingerings in their music, and if you were in a lesson with them, you could likely have a very interesting discussion on that. However, when you see only the numbers and nothing else, it's sometimes not very obvious, and in the end it's all up to you about whether you decide to stick with the fingerings or try to find something else that works better for you. If you're facing this choice and are wondering what to do, I would say that it's always worth giving these fingerings a go, even if they feel awkward. They could feel a bit strange because perhaps you haven't come across fingerings like that before, and learning them may enrich your repertoire of fingerings and perhaps your technique too, so it's always interesting to give them a try. However, if something else feels more natural to you, of course you're always free to change it. After all, it is you who's going to play the piece, and if the suggested fingering feels awkward, even after you've practiced it for a while, it might be better to just let it go and choose something that feels more comfortable, something that will not get in the way of you playing the piece. Having said that, I'd like to talk about some exceptions and situations where you actually should try to stick to the fingerings marked in the score as much as you can. And this is when you're working on pieces where the goal is to learn a new technique or improve a technical aspect of your playing. How to recognize these pieces? Usually the title will make it pretty obvious. These pieces are usually called something like an etude, a study, or an exercise. If you're working your way through a harp method, like for example Grossi, Renier, or any other big book with lots of exercises, this is where you will usually find pieces and studies that focus on your technique. If there's nothing in the title that would suggest that, then a piece where you get lots of similar repeated patterns which all follow similar, perhaps slightly awkward fingering may belong to that group too. An interesting example is the Etudes for harp by Bach-Grandjany, which is a set of arrangements of pieces by Bach that Grangeni turned into etudes. So even though all works in this book are pieces in their own right and not just exercises, this is where you definitely want to stick to the fingering written there, even if it's awkward. For example, you may be facing something like this. And even though it feels rather awkward, you should stick with that fingering because Grangeni surely put it there for a reason. Of course, when we have exceptions, we may also end up having an exception from this exception. Because etudes and exercises usually focus on the technical aspect of your playing, they can be physically demanding. So you want to be super careful that when you work your way through them, you can stay as healthy as possible and not try to stick to the fingering at all costs. To make it a bit more clear, let me share with you another example. This etude is all about practicing arpeggios and placing. As the brackets at the beginning show, you should place all your fingers on the way up together and down together. And whenever you make a turn, all fingers should be placed again together. This is of course a really important technical aspect of playing the harp, and it's important to pay attention to that. However, when you progress through the piece, you will see that the later chords start following some more unusual shapes, sometimes requiring you to stretch your hands quite a bit. And if your hands are, like mine, rather small, this may be too much to ask from your body. In such case, it's perfectly fine to look for alternative solutions that would make it possible for you to still play all the notes, but that will prevent you from accidentally injuring yourself. To sum up, most fingering suggestions that you will see in harp music are exactly that, just a suggestion. Usually, they are there for a reason, and although it's not always possible to know exactly what the composer or arranger had in mind, it's always worth to give them a go, as they may expand your repertoire of fingerings and your technique. If you're early on in your harp journey, it's usually best to stick to the fingerings suggested either by the composer or your teacher. If you're more advanced and have more experience when it comes to various fingering possibilities, you will have more freedom about choosing what works best for you. The one exception that you should watch out for are pieces which focus on technique, like etudes, studies, or exercises, where the point is to practice certain patterns in a way suggested by the composer. But again, the exception from this exception is fingerings which may just not work for your hands, and then your priority is to find an alternative solution that will allow you to stay as healthy and as comfortable as possible. Have you got any fingering questions? Are you sometimes puzzled by the suggestions that you find in the music? Do let me know in the comments. Also, make sure to subscribe to get notified about the future episodes of Coffee Break Harp, and if you liked this episode, leave a like or a comment to let me know you found it helpful. I will see you here again very soon, and in the meantime, take good care of yourself. Bye for now!